Good afternoon and welcome to the S.J. Hall lecture on industrial forestry. I'm David Ackerley, Dean of Rausser College of Natural Resources, and I'm very pleased to welcome you all here and looking forward to Mark's talk. The introduction will proceed in actually 3 stages. The first stage is, before we begin the event, I would like to explain some general rules so that everyone can fully enjoy the program. With this spirit in mind, I request that you please silence your cell phones, stay in your seats, keep aisles clear. Berkeley is a free speech university. This includes the norm that we do not obstruct the free speech rights of others. For this event specifically, time, place, and manner policies apply that are aligned with our Berkeley principles of community. Please do not engage in any action that disrupts the event or prevents the speaker from being heard during the next 90 minutes within the Brower Center. It goes on. Individuals who are disruptive will be asked to leave. Those individuals may be removed from the event or have other actions taken, and campus members may be referred for the appropriate disciplinary process. Also, this event is being recorded, and we ask that audience members do not take pictures or video during the event. Stage 2 of the introduction. Before I introduce our distinguished speaker, I'd like to give you some background on the S.J. Hall lecture series and its namesake, Sherwood J. Hall. Upon acquiring his B.S. in forestry from New York State University, Syracuse in 1920, Hall entered the forestry profession as a consultant in the South for the James D. Lacey Company, and in 1931 formed Forest Managers, Inc., where he both managed forests and advised other forest land owners. One of his clients was J.C. Penney, whom he aided in sculpting barren land into a forested home for a retirement center. Hall played a major role in the development of industrial forestry in the South before moving to the West in 1948, where he was one of the first to recognize the potential of the West's young growth timber stands. Accordingly, Hall and 2 partners acquired a 27,000-acre cutover redwood tract, establishing the Gualala Redwoods Company. The company quickly emerged as a leader in the industrial management of young growth redwood land, practicing sustained yield forestry. Upon Hall's death in 1968, his widow, Mrs. Desi Hall, moved to create the Forest Economics Foundation to advance the understanding and practice of sound economic principles among forestry students. Later that year, she established the S.J. Hall Lectureship in Industrial Forestry and the S.J. Hall Chair in Forest Economics here at UC Berkeley. Matthew Potts is the current S.J. Hall Chair in Forest Economics. Matthew, raise your hand. Matthew's also juggling a child's birthday party, so if you see him slip out, he's excused. And back in, probably. But Hall felt strongly that economic understanding is basic to effective forestry and to a strong nation. And it is in keeping with that sentiment that we hold this annual lecture. Berkeley will be able to hold this annual event and continue to support our world-renowned programs in forest management and economics in perpetuity, thanks to the generosity of Desi Hall. This afternoon, I would like to welcome and recognize members of the Hall family who have made it their tradition to participate in this annual event. Desi's daughter, Susan Hall, is with us this evening. And Desi's grandson, David, and granddaughter, Julie, are late in traffic. The Hall family are faithful participants, and it has become a wonderful tradition to see them every fall. Welcome. A few more announcements. Following today's lecture, I invite you all to please join us in the gallery outside for a reception. Following the public reception, there is a private dinner for the annual meeting of the California Alumni Foresters. You all know who you are, and that will be upstairs. And then following the lecture or the presentation, we will have a Q&A session, and we ask that you submit questions with the cards that have been distributed around. So we won't be sending around a mic. So make sure you write down your questions and pass them forward. And I can tell you in advance, we won't get to all of them, but we always appreciate all your questions. Okay, part 3 of the introduction. I'd like to welcome tonight's speaker, Mark Emmerson. Mark Emmerson is the Chief Executive Officer of Sierra Pacific Industries, one of the nation's leading lumber, millwork, and window and door manufacturers. Sierra Pacific, known to all of us as SPI, is also the largest privately held U.S. forest land owner and a producer of renewable energy. With roots as a forest products company dating back to 1949, SPI is a 4th-generation, family-owned business based in Anderson, California. The company owns over 2.4 million acres of timberland in California, Oregon, and Washington, making it the largest privately held forest land owner in the United States. Its forest land management is certified under the Independent Sustainable Forestry Initiative, and with nearly 6,500 crew members across 30 states, SPI is not only a very large employer, but also one of our largest U.S. producers of lumber and wood products. Mark, along with his father and brother, lead the operations of SPI. Prior to being named CEO in November 2021, he held a number of roles at SPI. He served as CFO, where he led the company's accounting and financial activities and played an integral role in the firm's growth through his involvement in the financing of significant acquisitions. Mark also has lumber manufacturing experience, having managed the construction and later the operations of the Anderson, California sawmill complex. Mark serves on several boards, including the National Alliance of Forest Owners and the California Forestry Association. He is past chairman of the board for the U.S. Endowment for Forestry and Communities, and he is a graduate of the Haas School of Business here at the University of California, Berkeley. You'd think I could get that part. So please join me in welcoming Mark for this presentation.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon. It really is an honor to be here. See a lot of friends and other folks and people I don't know, but really do appreciate everyone taking your time. I'm kind of disappointed with my friends that they don't have something more exciting to do, but Anyway, really am pleased to be here. It's an honor to get to speak to you folks for a little while. I'm going to talk about the history of our company, talk about some of the transactions that we've gone through, timberland purchases, talk about lumber, windows operations, some capital projects, and conclude with what I think is the biggest threat to our company and what we're doing about it. But first, who was at the big game in 1982? All right. Yeah, again, I graduated in 82, so with that, I wanted to play this for a second. Let's see if this is going to work.
Harmon will probably try to swim it, and he does. Ball comes loose, and the Bears have to get out of bounds. Rogers along the sideline, another one. They're still in deep trouble at midfield. They tried to do a couple of... The ball is still loose as they get it to Rogers. They give it back now to the 30. They're down to the 20. Oh, the band is out on the field. He's going to go to the field. The Bears have won. The most amazing, sensational, dramatic.
I guess everyone's getting ready for tomorrow, huh?
Exciting, thrilling.
Well, that's great. You know, the reason I played this, not because I wanted you to let you know that I was there, or because it's a great play, but you know, in a lot of ways, it kind of reminds me of business in that we have to plan for everything. I mean, we plant trees. We, we're building the biggest capital expenditure project we've ever done in the company right now. It's going to be years to get it finished. But then you have to also be nimble. Things change. You know, if you think you know what's going to happen tomorrow, it doesn't always work that way. You have to be nimble. And COVID certainly taught us that. We didn't think, who could prepare for COVID? You know, it was pretty funny. We thought we were going to have to shut down operations, and we did. We needed to sell 12 million feet of lumber a day. We were selling 3. We don't have the physical space. So we got organized, shut down 3 plants. By the time we got them shut down, our business was crazy. We couldn't even keep Home Depot with wood. So initially, we started them right back up. But I really do think that being nimble is a real success, a contributor to success, particularly for a private company. And being private allows us to make decisions quickly. And these are the people that make the decisions. This is myself, my sister, who's chairman of our, president of our foundation, my father, and my brother, who's the chairman of the board. My father is 96 years old, and still, he doesn't work as much as he used to. Sometimes he's not there on Sunday. But I'm serious when I say that my father is there. He was there this morning. He's very sharp. Yeah, sometimes he falls asleep in meetings when we're talking about HR issues or some other boring topic. But I'll tell you, if we're talking about spending money, he does not fall asleep. So this is a picture of my grandfather, and in 1949, my father had graduated from high school, came down to Humboldt County to work with his father, and had our first sawmill. Now, at that time, there were probably 150 sawmills in Humboldt County. These were not sophisticated operations. They produced maybe 20, 30,000 feet a day. We produced that in 2 minutes today. And they didn't have good waste conveyors. So, they operate and cut the logs, all the sawdust would accumulate, they all burned down. I'll bet you in Humboldt County's history in the last 75 years, I'll bet there's been over 1,000 sawmills that burned up. They were small, out in the woods type of operations. But this picture on the right is our operation in Samoa, California. That was our first real sawmill, built in about the early 60s, I think maybe 59. I started working there in 1975 doing cleanup. That mill produced about 6 million feet a month, and it operated for 65 years. So Sierra Pacific didn't really come into existence until 1969. Before it was R.H. Emerson and Son. But in 1969, my family and another family put their assets together, and the company went public. You can see on the left is my father, on the right his partner, John Crook, a Berkeley grad. But so they went public, and each family kept 40%, and so only 20% was on the market. And I think about maybe 10 minutes after my dad did it, he didn't like it. He thought that, and I asked him, why'd you do it? He said, well, I thought I got more for the 20% than the whole thing was worth. But he did not like it. They had to have quarterly meetings. You had the agenda, the minutes, all the formalities of being a public company, and it slowed them down. They lost some of their nimbleness with you have to go through a board and do all this stuff. And again, it's one of the real competitive things in our company is the fact that we are private and we can make quick decisions. So in 1973, he purchased hawked his soul with Bank of America and got money and bought out his partner and bought out the remaining 20% of the shares. And the company has been private, held 100% by my family since. So this is Sierra Pacific today. We have operations in California, obviously 1.9 million acres. We have a dozen sawmills. We have millwork plants, and we have a window assembly plant. In Oregon, just in 2021, we purchased a company up there. We have now 175,000 acres, and we have 2 sawmills in Oregon. In Washington, we have 4 operations and about just under 400,000 acres of timberland. Our operations in Washington State are very competitive. And then we also have window assembly plants, 3 in Wisconsin, and our newest one down in Phoenix City, Alabama. More on those in a minute here. So we're going to be at this slide for a second. This is how we accumulated that 2.4 million acres. About 40 transactions spanning about 40 years. In talking about the timberland ownership, when I first started, I started with the company in 1985. At that time, the vast majority of timberland in the West was owned by publicly traded C corporations, the likes of Weyerhaeuser, Georgia Pacific, Louisiana Pacific, Pacific Lumber Company, Willamette, Kimberly-Clark, all these big names that we were familiar with. But in the 80s, the tax law changed, and C corporations were no longer efficient entities to hold timberland. An individual would get capital gains treatment from Code Section 631A. I'm going to go down a rat hole here, but it gets a little complicated. Just understand that in the mid-80s, it was no longer efficient for a C corporation to own timberland. So what could these companies do? They could sell their timberland. That was done by Louisiana Pacific, Fiberboard, Georgia Pacific, and Kimberly-Clark. They sold Champion International. They sold their timberland. Or you could convert to a REIT. Weyerhaeuser has successfully done that. A REIT is a pass-through entity, so the unit holder gets the capital gains treatment. Or they could be bought up, and that happened to Bohemia, Willamette, Pacific Lumber Company. They were purchased and broken up, and the asset was sold. So taking a minute and talking specifically about some of these transactions, really have to start with this one right here. This is in 1988, close in 89. That was 520,000 acres of land from the railroads. Now, if you remember the railroads if your history, the railroads were incentivized to build the Transcontinental Railroad. They got alternating sections of land adjacent to the rail. A section of land is 640 acres or 1 mile square. So we have a bunch of checkerboard, and it is absolutely a horrible way to manage timberland. Timberland should be managed according to the watershed, not some artificial boundary driven by man. But anyway, that's contributed to other problems that we have. But anyway, this was a big transaction. Bank of America lent my family $460 million to buy that. At that time, the company was worth about a quarter of that. So I don't know who those crazy bankers were to do that. But some other ones here, you maybe recognize some of these names. Fiberboard no longer exists. Bohemia no longer exists. We've done quite a few deals with Roseburg. This is a fun one over here. Yeah, right up here. Let's see, right there. Klamath Bartle Gap. It's kind of funny. We sold that in 2008, I guess. My father didn't want to sell it. We weren't doing very well then. I wanted to make our financial covenants. So we ended up selling that. But the funny thing is, we sold it to the Campbell Group, and they harvested on it, it burned, and we bought it back last year. So some of these lands are kind of trade around. But anyway, another interesting one is this one right here. You know, how do you determine timberland value? Well, there's a few simple things. Stocking is how are there lots of trees there? Are they ready to be harvested? What's the productivity of the land? If they're not ready today, when will they be ready? Be determined by the productivity. The topography. If it's flat, it can cost a third of what it costs to harvest if it's really steep by overhead yarding. And fourthly, the location. How close is this timberland to the mill? How much freight are you going to have into it? So this one right here, Tono, my brother and I negotiated this. Yeah, here we go. It's only 3,500 acres, but this is the most expensive timberland our company has ever bought. Over $10,000 an acre. It is flat, it is fully stocked, and it is 4 miles from our sawmill. So up in Centralia, Oregon. So anyway, we've accumulated 2.4 million acres. It's been quite a ride. I was intimately involved with virtually every one of these transactions, and I don't mean to say that I led them. There are many people that are involved in the growth of the company. But anyway, with the acquisition of the 175,000 acres here in 21, we became the largest landowner in the country. And I almost get teared up when I see this. My father is the most successful living man in this industry today. And I mean, there's no question about that. He had a really tough life growing up. He came from incredible, humble beginnings. And you could only do this in the United States. You know that 70% of countries in the world, you could not even own land. And in most places, if you are born poor, you die poor. But there are still opportunities in this country. As screwed up as we may be, there still is an opportunity here for people that are willing to take risk and work hard. Probably the greatest satisfaction I get in my career is watching people succeed. There is just nothing more satisfying than having someone who, we have probably 700 managers, 700 salary people, and there are many of them, well, few of them that have college degrees, and most of them started at the bottom in the facility. And with their hard work, we give them an opportunity, and they have been successful. And I mean it. There is just nothing more satisfying than giving someone an opportunity and seeing what they can do with it. I mean, it's been wonderful. Talking about our lumber operation specifically, this is our newest mill in Shelton, Washington. It'll produce about 450 million feet a year. We produce right at 3 billion feet in our company. And we have to sell about 12 million feet a day. That's 120 carloads or 600 truckloads. So it's quite a bit. In The US, we're number 2 in manufacturing. In North America, we're number 5. But I'm confident that we are the largest privately held lumber company in the world. It's quite an achievement that my father has accomplished. This is the inside of the Shelton Mill. And again, we have about 18 sawmills. And this right here is the first or second largest production mill, I think, in North America. But it's going to get beaten. So our windows here for a second. Again, we have assembly plants, around the country here. We can get to any part of the country within about a day. And all of the parts are, the window parts are milled and machined in Red Bluff, California. We can get so much value. I mean, the whole thing is trying to get the value out of the fiber. The most valuable product we make is a window component. Today we sell it for about $8,000 a thousand, 20 times what we sell a 2x4 for. So consequently, it's easy to machine the parts here, and we can easily truck them to these locations. It's no problem. And today we'll do $500 million of business in the window division. It's really an impressive operation run by some really great people. In fact, this is our the newest. We took this building. I mean, I get admit, this is a 600,000 square foot building in Phoenix City. The first time I went there, I went, what have we purchased? I mean, this thing, it looked horrible. I mean, I love this look. These were everywhere. Asbestos, asbestos, asbestos. But with some time and money, we took that facility and really, I mean, it's hard to imagine what it looked like before this, but it really have done a nice job. And we're extremely excited to be in Alabama. It is an incredibly good environment for a company, and we are just tickled pink to be there. And this is, got to use some scissors here. This is our grand opening. My father's there, and there's the mayor of Phoenix City. There's the gentleman that runs our division, Tom Takish, and this is the governor, Kate Ivey. She was there to help us with our ribbon cutting. Here's some just examples of products that we have. There's an architect in here. A few architects. Yeah, you guys want everything bigger all the time. And it's, today we make operating windows bigger than we made doors when we first started the business. I mean, it is how the product has changed. It is just incredible. And colors. We have 70 standard colors. Can anyone here name 70 colors? I mean, I look at what these guys do, what these architects want, and they're all, you gotta love these names. Sage, they're all cinnamon, Our marketing people come up with some pretty clever names for our colors. But anyway, our window division is doing well. Our revenue should be up 12% this year, and our order intake will be up by 19%. Now, I think most companies are about even, so we're feeling pretty good about the opportunity within the window division. I want to talk about cogeneration for a minute. We produce about 180 megawatts of cogeneration electricity. That's enough to power about 180,000 homes. So cogeneration, what is it? In the manufacturing process of lumber, you generate numerous byproducts: bark, sawdust, chips, shavings. In the cogeneration plant, we will take and burn the least valuable, which is always going to be sawdust, and then some other things. Your byproducts value varies according to where you are. If you're adjacent to a pulp mill, we're not going to be burning chips. We'll be sending them to a pulp mill. If you're closer to Southern California, we're probably going to be taking the bark and using it for ornamental purposes. But it's an incredibly great fit for a sawmill because we need power, obviously, to run a sawmill, and we need steam for drying lumber. So we take the boiler will get the steam up to, say, 900 degrees and 900 psi. Then we put it through a turbine. As the energy, the steam and heat energy is converted to electricity, both the pressure and the temperature drop. When the steam gets down to about 300 degrees and 300 psi, we will extract it and take it to the dry kilns. And that's why it's called cogeneration, because we use the steam twice. And it's a great fit for a sawmill. Again, the fuel comes in on the log, and anyway, we're very happy with it. We wish we had one of these there at every location, but it's very difficult to get a contract to sell your power. Today, PG&E is one of our top 10 customers, and they're not easy to deal with. So something else that we have is we built our own fabrication shops. We have fabrication shops we started in Anderson about 1988, and it's been a wonderful addition to our company. This is unique. We make a lot of our own equipment. That's something that's very common about Sierra Pacific is that, or I should say probably unique, we do a lot of our own things. We don't use third parties. We do contract our logging, but for instance, when we're building this operation here, this is up in Eugene, we are the general contractor. But we have about 150 folks working in our fabrication plants. We just built the newest one in Eugene. We have one in Shelton and one in Anderson. We also do a lot of electronics. We do our own motor control centers. We do a lot of PLC programming. So, do you guys know what a PLC is? Programmable Logic Controller. They run the world today. They really do. Every industrial facility, there's in our sawmill in Shelton, I bet we have 200 of them. They're just, they used to be very simple computers. Today they're very complicated computers. But we do our own PLC programming. So this is the project up in Eugene. It is, and I said earlier that, if you remember, Shelton does about 450 million feet of capacity. This we think is going to be 600. It's going to be, and this is the largest capital project our company has ever done. Probably going to be, I think, probably over $300 million when we're finished. But it also it's a 200,000 square foot building. It's going to be a 2-line stud mill and also a large log mill. And let's see if this is going to work. I was up there just the other day, and we got a cameo of my dad here. There he is. But just getting a size of the scale of this facility, and there's a lot of work to be done. Even out here, it's hard to appreciate how much work was underneath this, all the conduit and piping and everything. It's been quite a project, and it's probably going to be done. It'll be at least 2 more years before it's finished. And then also, this is a fun one. This was, we built a nursery up in Siskiyou County with the help of Cal Fire and John McCarthy. Thanks, John. Anyway, this is the ribbon cutting. We broke ground in 23. Last year we grew about 5 million seedlings, and we're going to be growing more. Hopefully we'll get up to 10 million this year, and we'd like to get up to 25 million. We have 270,000 square feet of greenhouses right now. We will be adding another 120,000 next year, but we're real excited about this. I tell you, there's nothing better looking than all these little trees. And it's because we plant anywhere from 8 to 13 million trees a year. Trees that I won't see being harvested. I mean, when you talk about a long-term business, planting trees is pretty long-term. And anyway, it's been a great, we're really pleased with this greenhouse as far as we've kept our own seeds forever, but we used to contract it. And it's not a stretch to think that we would have our own nursery. So that was the fun stuff. This is the not so fun stuff. These are the fires, the largest fires in California's recent past. Now let's see, which is one that goes to 32. So again, since 1932, these are supposedly the largest fires in California. What's scary is when you look at when they are. Almost all of them are recent. And I know that we have significantly better firefighting capacity today than we did 50 years ago. So what's going on? Well, 2 things. First, we've been putting out fires in California for over 100 years. And if we weren't going to mechanically remove the vegetation, that was probably a mistake. But here we are. And then climate change. How does that impact this? I don't know, really. But what I can tell you is that this is scary. This is really scary stuff. And, compared to this now. Now, do you see any trend there? I mean, this is fire acreage burned on just our land in California. So in 21, we had 100,000 acres burned. I mean, we can't continue to have this happen. We're not sustainable. We'll be shutting operations and, laying people off and closing plants. That's not what we want. I mean, this is just ridiculous. I mean, it's just horrible. So, what do we do? Well, first thing we did is we came up with our own fire policy. It's been around since 2006, but we've really ramped up the efforts here as far as doing all these 1,350 inspections. We inspect over 60,000 items. We have a third-party person come and do this. And it's, you got to be serious about it. I mean, and I'll tell you, when we first started the inspections about 3 years ago, we were probably in compliance 85% of the time, that the guys had all the tools and everything. Last year, it was 99%. So a significant improvement, and we take this extremely seriously. And so do our contractors. I mean, the last thing they want to do is start a fire and have it get out of control. Now, one thing that's different between us and, say, PG&E regarding fires, we're operating in the woods, we're going to have fires. That's the reality. But the difference is that we're going to be ready to put it out. And every day, if there's a fire that is 1 foot square in our timberlands, I hear about it. I mean, it's a serious deal. But we have to be able to put them out. And that equipment that our contractors are using is incredibly effective at putting these fires out. I mean, you have a small fire and you have a D8 cat, that fire doesn't have a chance. I mean, it'll be put out immediately. But we take this extremely seriously. And then also, weather stations in our PAL system. We started this about 2007 or so. And we started with some weather stations that we could move around. And we have permanent weather stations too. Today we have about 150 weather stations up and down the Sierra. We're putting some in Oregon and Washington as well, where we daily will see what the temperature is, what the moisture content of the soil is, the humidity, the wind speed, and according to those factors, we come up with what we call our PAL system, and that's the project activity level, what our contractors can do according to these fire conditions. When the Camp Fire started, the horrible fire in Paradise, we were on a red flag. We didn't have any operations that day. You could forecast it. I mean, it's really not rocket science to understand what the fuel conditions are, the soil conditions, and what's going to happen if we have a fire. So every day during fire season, we'll put out 1,000 emails, 1,000 texts to our contractors telling them where they are on this matrix and what they can do. And it's been incredibly effective. I think it's the most advanced in the industry. I don't know of anybody else that's doing this. And these weather stations, again, we move them around to where we're operating, and it's been pretty good. In addition to working on the PAL system in our fire plan, this is an interesting one. In 2018, Dianne Feinstein got 7 C-130s allocated to California to fight fire. Well, I saw them in 2023, and they had been painted and maintained. Not one had been converted for fighting fires because the Air Force was fighting with the FAA over the STC. I mean, I have never seen a better example of government bullshit. I mean, really, these are great aircraft, and they can be incredibly effective at fighting a fire, but you have to convert them. So I actually went and talked to the governor, and I said, we got these airplanes sitting up there at McClellan, what can we do? And he said, I know they're there. And he said, there's one person who can fix this, and that's the President of the United States. And he said, I'm not willing to use my political capital to do that. And I don't understand at all the relation between the state and the federal government. So I don't take offense at that. I'm not saying that trying to be nasty. I mean, the governor has many bigger fish to fry than I can even think of. So I kind of was going like, well, hell, what do we do now? And I was talking to a congressman, Ken Calvert, and he's a cardinal appropriator and longest serving Republican in the House from California. And he said, I know what we'll do. We'll put it in the National Defense Authorization Act. The NDAA is passed every year. If it's not, we don't have a military. So he did. He stuck it in there. And in the first part of 24, I got a call from Alex Padilla the day President Biden signed it. So now the C-130s are up, and 2 of them were available last fire season, and all of them should be available next year. And of course, this is at the kind of the ribbon cutting. This is the ribbon cutting, and of course, the governor was there taking credit for it all. But hey, but in all honesty, Governor Newsom has been very good to CAL FIRE. We've got the best chief of CAL FIRE that I've ever worked with, and the governor truly has been, we're having a huge budget deficit, but the governor didn't cut any funding to CAL FIRE. He really has been good about that, and I think he is truly engaged in, it's a big issue for California, but the governor has been good to us. I can tease a little bit, but I think he's doing a pretty good job regarding that issue. And then something else we really did was fuel breaks. This is a big deal. We've built over 2,200 miles of fuel breaks in the last few years, and we're going to do it 50% more. These don't always work. If you have a 40, 50 mile an hour wind, it's not going to work. But we can be more demanding of our firefighters, because if you're in this fuel break here, there's not enough fuel there to cook you. You're not going to perish if you are fighting fire from a fuel break. It'll go right over the top of you, and you will be okay. But we've spent considerable amount of money on these fuel breaks, but there's a problem. Remember I talked about that checkerboarding land? Well, so our fuel breaks go for a mile and they stop. They go for a mile and they stop. And fire doesn't recognize property lines. It just goes right over it. So it's a real issue that we started talking to the Forest Service about in probably 2023, 2021. And here's an example of, this is the park fire. I don't know if you guys remember that one. It was in 23, I think. I can't remember. There's too many of them. And anyway, this burned 460,000 acres in California. It burned 62,000 acres of our land. But you can see that it stopped on our fuel break. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Right here, it just stopped. And they were able to take a real hard line here, and it worked. Here's another example of that same road there. In fact, let's see if this is going to go.
You might remember how the park fire burned into parts of Forest Ranch, but CAL FIRE said a fuel break helped stop the fire from spreading to hundreds more homes. They're calling this a success story. CAL FIRE said about 10 years ago, Sierra Pacific Industries started putting these shaded fuel breaks along Highway 32 along the ridge. One of these breaks helped slow the park fire's energy.
And we were very successful in slowing the fire's progression here and ultimately stopping it before it even got to 32, which kept it out of the little Chico Creek drainage, the communities of Forest Ranch and Butte Meadows. So,
CAL FIRE said it's efforts like these that help defensible space and protect communities from wildfire.
So this is, previously we stopped right here. I showed you that one, and again, over 100,000 acres burned. I'd like to think we were somewhat effective here. This is the park fire. 62,000 acres, but at least we stopped it, and it didn't go, it wasn't bigger. It could have hit us to over 100,000 acres. And I'll tell you, our forestry staff, I am just so impressed with what they can do. We harvested, salvaged 325 million feet out of here in less than a year. That is just a Herculean effort of, you folks understand, 325 million feet of logs. That will run a large sawmill for 3 years. Yeah, but we got it out, and we were planting. We've already started planting the 62,000 acres. It's kind of sad. The majority of that land is owned by the Forest Service, and it won't be planted. But there's some good stuff here too. We have, if you can imagine, again, because of our checkerboard ownership, we have in excess of 6,000 miles of border with the federal government. I mean, that is more than we have with our southern border with Canada. So, you know, we went to DC and lobbied last year and said, we want to build fire breaks on Forest Service land, and we want money to do that. Now, we're not building it ourselves, it's our contractors, but I was amazed. I didn't think it would work. Even our lobbyists back in DC said, this is a Hail Mary, but we got it. We got $75 million allocated to Region 5, that's California, and Region 6, which is Oregon, Washington, the majority in California. And what we're doing is we identified 23 projects in California where we are connecting our fuel breaks through the Forest Service land. Now, there are some saw logs that are generated from these fuel breaks. You know, it's not surprising. I mean, there are going to be fuel, salvage logs or good logs generated, and we don't get those. Those are decked, and the government then does a deck sale, so anybody can bid on them. I mean, that's too much the fox in the hen house. That doesn't pass. So anyway, and also we are charging 4% to do this. When you look at projects of this scale done by, well, first of all, it's never been done before. No private company has ever done this before. And but I think that I know that these fuel breaks will save property, they'll save homes, and they'll save lives. So really, it's a really great public-private collaboration. And we also believe that every dollar invested in fuel breaks saves $4 in suppression costs. So we got $75 million. We're going to thin 27,000 acres, put in 400 miles of fuel breaks on 9 national forests, and have it complete in 3 years. And you can see this is an area that's been cleaned out. This was with Secretary Rollins, one of our local congressmen, chief of the Forest Service, and anyway, we signed that just the beginning of this year. And here's an example of a project in Region 6. This is all Region 5 with the different national forests. And here's an example of the checkerboarding and the connection of these fuel breaks. You can see like the blue is us. So we did this fuel break here, but it had to stop here, had to stop here. Now we'll be connecting them. So this should help contribute to fewer fires. Here's just some pictures of before and after on the fuel breaks. And then this.
Forest, Sierra Pacific Industries, and the USDA Forest Service are building fuel breaks for firefighters to use to help protect communities and natural resources.
This is about the people, the area around Trinity Center, and the watershed around Trinity Lake. With this fuel break, we are specifically trying to reduce the risk to communities from wildfire.
That's where a lot of our communities nowadays are on the cusp of a wildland fire hitting them.
Creating these strategically interconnected fuel breaks is actually a necessity for us to be successful in reducing fire risk across the landscape.
Over the last couple of years, we've seen a huge benefit of a lot of our fuel breaks. It's allowed us to use all of our resources in a much quicker manner. It allows us to get around the fires faster, save the communities, and save the watershed itself.
The idea for this project came about by a collaborative group, which included federal, state, and local agencies. On this project in particular, and on many projects that we partner with Sierra Pacific Industries, we get the work done and decrease the wildfire risk to communities at a much faster pace.
These partnerships work tremendously, and we need more of them.
It really is only through this kind of collaborative effort that we will ultimately be successful in the long run at reducing fire risk.
These projects specifically stop a fire and allow us to bring everybody home safely.
This is what real wildlife prevention looks like. Cooperative work on the ground that makes wildfire resilience a reality.
So we're pretty happy with what we're doing with the Forest Service. We've never had a better relationship with the Forest Service and CAL FIRE. It's really a win-win deal. So I'm just going to conclude and talk a little bit about the Sierra Pacific Foundation. We've had a foundation since 1979. Every year we give out several $1 million to the local communities, either hospitals. We also put a lot of effort into youth sports. And probably the biggest program is the scholarship program. If you're a Sierra Pacific employee, your child has about a 99% chance of getting a scholarship. We contribute about $600,000 a year to that program. So it's been my grandfather started it and continue to carry on with it. So with that, are there questions?
Thank you, Mark. So write questions on your cards, pass them to the end of the row. We'll have folks walk around, and while we're waiting, I'll start with a couple. So I asked you before, as we were sitting waiting, what keeps you awake at night, but you said you actually sleep pretty well at night. So what keeps you alert in the morning as you go to work? What's the biggest worry when you go to work every day?
Without a doubt, it is injuries and wildfires. And regarding injuries, I'm real proud that we put a serious effort into reducing injuries in the last 4 years. And we have reduced injuries by 40%. And we've reduced severity of injuries by about 80%. I mean, these sawmills are not inherently dangerous, but people, if you're not careful, the machinery is not very forgiving. And so anyway, I'm very pleased that we have reduced our injuries, put some real effort into it, and also with these efforts, I believe that we will reduce our wildfire risk.
And I really do want to call out that improving safety is a real focus for us. Kristen's here, one of our field safety committee members, but thinking about near misses, about the culture of safety. So there's some common ground there between industry and the university at the moment.
There really is, we call it a safety culture.
Yeah.
I mean, and we have a deal we started a few years ago. It's take 60. Take 60 seconds before you address this issue. Do you know what you're doing? Do you know how to lock it out? Do you have the proper equipment? Do you need help? And I always tell people, if you're running in a sawmill, it better either be on fire or someone is hurt. You don't run. I mean, there's no reason to do that. Take your time. Just slow down a bit.
So on a different note, you all are making very large investments. You showed us new mills, the greenhouses, the nurseries. So you're making a bet on the future of wood as a product. So what do you guide your bets on the future on about the future of the market?
Well, I don't think there's going to be a replacement very soon. Maybe there will be someday, but even if there's a replacement, I think it's going to be cellulose-based. So we're going to be using that fiber. Maybe it's going to be different products. Maybe it's going to be cross-laminated timber, mass timber, but still our trees will contribute to those products.
All right, we're going right. You knew this audience would come with some good questions. There is recent research showing that fire in private lands is actually burning more severe. It says more fire. I think it's more severe from my knowledge than actually on the public lands. So, but what's your sense of how the forest management for production forestry intersects with fire risk and fire danger in terms of just the structure of the forest and the...
I read that article as well. Frankly, I have a hard time believing that. I go, and my experience is just from being out in the forest and looking at these fires. I flew over the Dixie Fire, which was a complex, numerous fires, and it just isn't true. I mean, someone can come up with a study, that can almost say anything. But you tell me, I mean, our forests have so many fewer stems than the Forest Service land. Now, here's my study. I know if I put less fuel in my fireplace, the fire is smaller. I mean, the Forest Service used to have 90 stems per acre. There are many areas in the Forest Service where it's 700. You can't even see through the forest. Now, that's not our land. I mean, our land is thinned out. And and the way we do it in California, we take about a 16, 18 acre area, and we're going to cut it down. We're going to start over. Our timberlands in California have been operated on for 100 years. And what the previous owners did, understandable, they just cut the best trees and they didn't worry about it. Then they'd come in again and cut the best trees and cut the best trees. Well, over time, you lower the quality. The parents of our trees were considered inferior. They weren't cut. So we go in and we start all over. And we're going to plant around 300 trees per acre. We'll thin it out. Today in California, we have about 32 billion feet of timber. In 40 years, we should have about 58 billion. And even that large purchase, the Santa Fe, 522,000 acres. I mean, we all know that trees grow, but it's pretty amazing. We've been operating on that timberland for almost 4 decades. There's more timber on it today than when we bought it. I mean, I think the idea that fires are more severe on private land, I just don't understand that at all. I go out in the forest and you look at the land that we own collectively, the Forest Service land. Nobody would manage their land that way.
Mark, you're in some ways you're talking our language, because this is what we do. We argue with each other over whether we agree on data interpretation. So send your folks down. Let's look at the data and dig in. And I think we have shared interest in understanding this, right? Of course you do. I mean, you have no interest in higher severity fires. So it's a topic we should dig in on. I know it's caught the attention of the research community here. There's a stack of questions which I'm going to just kind of combine and paraphrase, and I think a lot of interest in the fuel breaks, a lot of interest in the collaboration with the Forest Service. So there's a series of questions here. One, do you see a commitment to managing them? Like, what's the long-term management keeping them open? Do you see a role for prescribed burning in the fuel breaks to keep them open, or just prescribed burning in general in your properties?
Absolutely, fire is definitely a tool to be used in the forest, but you don't do it in August when we're in a 1,000-year drought. I mean, it has to be used professionally. You have to have folks available in case the fire gets out of control. But prescribed fire is definitely a tool to be used to manage a forest. What was the rest of that question?
Long-term plan on the fuel breaks.
The fuel breaks, they need to be worked on depending upon the area. You can't walk away for 10 years. They won't work. They need to be redone 3 to 5 years. And as far as using fire in them, possibly.
But does this mean Congress has to come back to the table to keep this going, or is the commitment there?
We're going to come back to Congress.
Okay. If you can wait 3 years.
Well, no, we're not going to. Well, in fact, we had meetings scheduled October 28th, but of course we didn't have government running then. But our fuel break work didn't stop, and we've been invoicing the Forest Service, and they didn't stop paying us either.
We even keep getting some of our grants paid for, despite all the headlines. It's still going. The federal government is not actually completely out of business, despite all the news to the contrary. What does sustainable forest management mean for you all as a company? So what does it mean in terms of practices in the forest? What does the certification process mean with the industry?
Well, we're under SFI, Sustainable Forest Initiative, and we're third-party verified by that. But the funny thing I like to say is sustainable. The truth is we're not, because sustainable means you're level. We're more than sustainable. We're growing more than we harvest. Our forests are increasing in volume. I mean, we are more than sustainable.
And on that note, you've been involved with the California carbon markets. Well, it says compliance markets, for carbon credits.
That's correct.
So where's the linkage between both what you just said and then participating in carbon credits?
Exactly. That's a good lead-in, because I mentioned earlier we've got 32 billion feet, something like that in California. We're going to get up to about 58. This is what my forestry guys tell me. And that is the carbon that we're selling, because we'll get up to 58 and then we'll kind of top off right about there. And we, in the carbon market, we guarantee that carbon will be in the forest for 100 years. And that works perfectly into our management plan. So that's how we participate in the carbon market.
Okay, we shift gears to some business questions. Those foolish bankers weren't so foolish, because apparently you paid the loan back. How long did it?
No, we defaulted on it.
How long did it take to pay Bank of America $400 million?
Well, the reality is it's like a bucket of water. I mean, you have that debt, you pay some off and you acquire some more and you put something in there. I mean, I guess the reality is we've never paid it off, but they're happy with us. I mean, we've never had we've never been lower leverage than we are today. So it's all, so far it's worked out. I haven't screwed it up yet.
And someone was curious about window products, window and door. The question is, do you sell under certain brand names? But maybe expand that to the supply
Sierra
chain.
Pacific.
Sierra Pacific is the brand name.
And you know, I should have explained this. When we got in the window business in 1990, we had no idea what we were doing. Again, it was trying to get the most value out of the fiber. And we had been in the millwork business for 20 years. And, you know, getting that little piece of wood that's going to go into a window, it's worth so much. We said, we want to be making these. It can't be that tough to put the window together, and it can't be that tough to sell them. Well, we're selling a commodity. If our lumber doesn't sell today, we come back tomorrow, we drop the price 1-2%, and we sell it. If someone doesn't want your window, I don't care what you do, you can't give it to them. I mean, it's a completely different product. It's branded. And so we really didn't understand that. It took us years to really develop a window line that I remember getting calls 15 years ago from a friend. Hey, I need a window. I'd go, oh, crap.
How's the reception right now?
But today, we've gone past that. I mean, we've been very successful in the window business. I think we probably have more opportunity there at the lowest cost to really grow that business. We're very happy with it today. Like I said, we're up 12% in invoicing this year, 19% in orders, and I think the industry is flat. So we are taking market share. And our competition's been in business for 100 years longer than we have. But we're noticed. I mean, they're much bigger, but we today, I think, are the third or fourth largest wood window manufacturer in the United States.
So maybe put this in just that context of the history you showed us. I think all of us, you know, we've looked at the numbers of students who come through our programs, and peaked in the 70s. There was a real 80s and 90s were sort of some dark years. Forestry camp was really small, and then just enormous pickup, partly, of course, due to fire. So you talked about there being a few years there when you said we sold some land, weren't doing too well. Like what was the dip, and what really has turned it around and just put the company on such a growth trajectory?
Well, it's all related to housing starts. I mean, that's the majority use of lumber. And that's, you know, housing starts related to interest rates, and also just how people feel. Right now, with the current administration, I'd say that there's uncertainty. You don't know if another tariff's going to go in tomorrow or whatever is going to happen. So what do you do when you're uncertain? You do nothing. And that has really affected home building and repair and remodel. So the lumber prices are pretty depressed right now. But I'm confident when you look at the statistics on the average age of the U.S. population, it's in the, you know, we've got the 35-year-old kids, that's when they're going to be buying homes. We've underbuilt for shelter to the tune of, you know, 4 to 5 million units, depending upon who you're talking with. I'm very optimistic that at least, you got to be optimistic to be in business anyway. But, and I certainly learned that from my father. But I really believe that when we have a little more certainty and interest rates are going to be coming down, I think that the second half of 26 will be pretty good for home building.
You know, that all of us who work on thinking about the future in a changing climate confront the optimism problem. But I heard a wonderful expression recently: the pessimists may be right, but the optimists have more fun along the way. So you didn't mention that feathered friend of the spotted owl about that period of time. So what was the role in your corporate history of
Well,
that
it's
period?
interesting because that acquisition was in 1988. The spotted owl came into play in about 92. So in California, Region 5, I think the peak timber sell was maybe 2.3 billion feet in California. And now we're down to about 300 million. So, you know, it's really sad. I mean, in Region 5, California, more timber dies than is harvested. I mean, it really is sad when you see, you know, and I truly believe it. California, it's easy math, it's 100 million acres, a little more. And there should be a portion of the state that is going to be, wilderness, where you don't touch it, you let nature do what it's going to do. And the question is, what percent should that be? In California, I believe there's about 14 million acres of Forest Service land. And that's supposed to be multiple use. But boy, we sure have changed that definition of multiple use. It doesn't really include much timber harvesting. I mean, in California, on our land, we will harvest probably 600 million feet on our, call it 2 million acres. And we're increasing our inventory. So we're harvesting twice what the federal government is on 1/7 the land base, and our inventory is increasing. I mean, it's it is what it is.
So going forward, there was a crystal ball question: where will SPI be in 50 years, and including still family owned?
Well, I don't think I'll be here, and I would hope it would be 50 years. It's interesting in California to operate. We have to have a 100-year plan. We have to have it for 10 decades. By decade, we have to submit reports on what we're going to be doing and what we're going to be doing on our land. So a 100-year plan. And I'm saying earlier, what's Google's 100-year plan? I mean, will they be around? And I'm not sure our company will be, but our land will be. We may not own it, but the land will still be there. 50 years, I would hope that we own more land and we're employing more people, and we'll still be private. That's what I'd hope.
And we'll still be here, and we'll still be public, and we'll still be working together. And so, but we're not going anywhere either.
I would think the University of California is going to be here in 50 years.
I think so. That is our plan. There was one question about if you care to comment on the Forest Service reorganization.
Well, I'm disappointed to think that we would have to go to Salt Lake City to talk to someone who's going to be covering Region 5. That doesn't seem to make sense. I don't know. I like Mare Island. That's pretty darn close, and that's where the regional forester is now. The idea that and maybe maybe it's not a bad idea to look at some of these things. I don't understand the organization that well. We have a great relationship with them, and I really like Tom Schultz. He's the new chief forester. But we had a great relationship with Randy Moore as well. I mean, I couldn't say anything better about the guy. He was available, accessible. I'm optimistic on what Tom Schultz can do.
So shifting back to talking about the university. So as you know, we've been working with CFA the last several years. Community colleges had a big grant to step up training programs, workforce programs.
And CFA is the California Forestry
California
Association.
Forestry Association in Sacramento. Our program is growing. So what do you personally see as sort of SPI's relationship with the accredited forestry programs, Humboldt, Berkeley, San Luis Obispo, the partnerships around the future of developing future of the work, not just and workforce, we mean in a very expansive sense.
Sure.
Leadership at all levels.
It's interesting. Forestry is now, I think at Cal Poly, I can't remember, I think they had maybe 300% increase in applicants, and it's related to fire. People want to know, the fires in California. I mean, I don't know if you guys have experienced the smoke. In Shasta County, we've had 100 days of smoke. And I mean, it's horrible, and I think that, society essentially subsidizes it. We're all in that horrible environment. There was an NPR article that came out recently that said 70,000 people a year die because of PM 2.5. That's 2.5 microns, and it goes directly into your blood from your lungs. And I don't know where they get the 70,000 people, but it's a big deal. The fires they're horrible. What was the rest of your question?
Oh, well, going back to the programs and
and so I think that the program at Cal Poly, Humboldt, whatever they call it now, and those programs are great. Unlike Berkeley, they are really getting more dirt foresters. At least that's the impression that we have. We have a lot of folks that graduated from Berkeley, and it's a great institution. I mean, it really is. I have nothing but warm feelings in my heart for this place. I had a good time here. I contributed, I think, to a somewhat successful career. And I think it's a great institution. I wish you guys were a little more down on the ground, focused on harvesting trees and doing THPs and that kind of thing. But hey, you certainly play a major role in forestry in California.
So before a final question, which will build on that, just show of hands of all the alumni foresters who are graduates of the program. Absolutely wonderful. Thank you all for being here. And I think, when we met with Tom Porter several years ago about some support from CAL FIRE, and he echoed what you said in maybe an affirmative light, saying we really do need people being trained for future leadership. So we hope that all of our forestry students are out in the forest during their education, doing the THPs, but a lot of them are going to go on to really important roles in industry, government, and that certainly we see as a lot of our role. So then, how many current students are here? And you're all sitting together. Okay.
All right. Are you going to? I want to know if you're going to come to work at Sierra Pacific.
Well, Mark, your the final comment. What's your words of wisdom for the current students in our forestry programs?
Well, there's a lot of opportunity. There really is, and I think there's a great jobs, but you also have important careers. And if you want to go and manage timberland, we got lots of it for you to be working on.
All right, join me, and thank you, Mark, again for a wonderful presentation.
Well, I want to thank you folks for being here today. I really do appreciate you taking the time to listen to what I had to say, and thank you for the questions.
And then we have a reception right out in the lobby of the Brower Center. Come join us.